Was Super Saiyan God really stronger than the most powerful form of fusion at the time? Or who would actually win between the two of them if they hypothetically fought? In this video, I'm going to break that down in depth after this. Hey guys, before I begin, I just wanted to let you know that LSM now has memberships. If you want to join and support this channel, you could do so by going to my channel, clicking join, and joining at one of the 3 tiers, getting access to the emojis, the badges, the Discord server, exclusive content, and that much more as you go up with the different tiers and help us to go even further beyond here at the channel. With that being said, let's get directly into the video so we could take a closer look at this and find out. Hey guys, so over here on my community tab, I did a number of different polls recently gauging people's thoughts on the power of fusion comparative to Super Saiyan God from Battle of Gods. And the overall question, which is, well, who would actually win the fight? If we had the hypothetical most powerful form of Goku, Vegeta fusing together, such as Vegito or Gogeta, into a, fusion to fight against Goku, who became a Super Saiyan God. So when it comes to these, in both instances, the audience decided that they believe that Super Saiyan God would win if the two were compared. Now, when it comes to that, a lot of the evidence that was cited was typically the same. In terms of things such as, for instance, that Goku thought that fusion would not be able to fight against Beerus. Now, the thing is, when it comes to Goku versus Beerus, we saw Super Saiyan 3 Goku fight against Beerus on King Kai's planet, and he was defeated easily, especially in the movie version where it didn't get dragged out like in the anime version. And so, with regard to that, afterward, when Goku is laying in a crater recovering, especially in the particular version of the extended cut, which might be the only one where this took place, I haven't seen the theatrical one in a while, the fact of the matter is that Goku says that Beerus is so strong, and he questions whether or not he should fuse with Vegeta. And he says that he didn't even think that would be enough. Now, Goku couldn't sense the power of Beerus. Beerus knew how powerful Goku was. As a matter of fact, when Beerus taps Goku earlier, he's examining him in his body, his biceps and his triceps, basically. What ends up happening is that Beerus actually says that he doesn't think base Goku is as powerful as even Frieza. Now, with that being said, a lot of people write this statement off as being, a matter of, Beerus just was sensing suppressed Goku. He doesn't know, but it's like, Beerus knew Goku was hiding on King Kai's planet when he was lowering himself to his absolute minimum. He heard that Goku defeated Frieza. And the thing is that no one in the scene, whether it be Goku or King Kai, ever contradicts that. When Goku transforms into a Super Saiyan, that's when Beerus says that he thinks he would have been able to defeat Frieza. So the thing is that with regard to that, happened in the movie version, in the anime. So in terms of the narrative, it seems like they're suggesting, whether it be Toriyama, Toei, or both, that that is in fact the case. Now, with that being said, you could make the exact same argument for the fight between, the power levels, let's say, of Super Saiyan God and Fusion. Now, in these polls, I put Super Saiyan 3 Vegito, and I also put, you can see a lot of different polls on here actually, because I, spoilers or sneak peeks at the future and some other versus battles I'm going to be discussing, as well as power comparisons, Super Saiyan 3 Gogeta. Now, we never saw Vegito or Gogeta go to that level, but you would have to assume that they can. After all, Goku could already do it individually, and we saw Gotenks easily achieve Super Saiyan 3 in the time chamber without even knowing that he could even do it with 2 characters who were just regular Super Saiyans. So, with that being said, even though Vegeta can't do it, we could hypothetically say that they would have been able to. Now, in the original continuity of Dragon Ball Z, and especially the Dragon Ball manga, before we got into Future Trunks, there was one thing that we could separate between the two fusions here, and that would be a time limit. So Super Saiyan 3 Vegito theoretically would not have any time limit comparative to, let's say, Super Saiyan Blue Vegito in the Future Trunks arc, if we're going by the original continuity. He was defused inside of Super Buu, but we don't really get an in-depth explanation as to why. It could be the error that Goku suggested. It could be some kind of magical property inside of Buu, because it happens immediately when he lowers the force field that didn't allow him to be absorbed, and so on. Either way, we do see the power of Super Saiyan 3 Vegito on display. So for instance, when that happens, we see Goku and Vegeta utterly dominate and devastate Super Buuhan. This is Super Buu, who was already the most powerful form of Buu at the time, depending upon what continuity we're looking at. And then he absorbs Goten, Trunks, and Piccolo, as well as Son Gohan, which is Son Goku's son, Son Gohan, which is Son Goten's brother, and the grandson, surrogate of Son Gohan again. And basically, he is vastly more powerful than Goku, Vegeta, and every other character up until that point in the story. But in the manga, Super Saiyan Vegito wrecks Super Buu easily. But in the anime, it's even more devastating because Super Saiyan 3 Vegito actually doesn't even need to happen at that point. Super Saiyan Vegito, you can argue, didn't really even need to necessarily exist either, because base Vegito was utterly wrecking Buu. He goes Super Saiyan 1, let's say, in the manga, or in the manga immediately. So you could argue that maybe the manga continuity would not have been able to win in just base form alone. In the anime, he goes on it to basically style on Buu. However, with that being said, there is a scene where he struggles a little bit, which I'll get into shortly. Now, with that being said, of course, based upon multipliers we've been told in the past, if you really accept them, I'll be doing videos about Super Saiyan multipliers and stuff in the future, breaking them down. I ran some polls recently for that. And if you want to see all these polls, you could subscribe and enable notifications, because you'll be able to see them a lot more easier. Now, with that being said, we could talk about the fact that he would have been able to get 8 times stronger with 2 times boost of Super Saiyan 2 on top of the Super Saiyan, and 4 times that for Super Saiyan 3. And because Vegito, at the time, probably not only would be permanent, but also far more powerful, and fusions themselves seem to have way more potential and capability of handling some of these techniques, like you could see me discuss in that video in the top right corner about do fusions have more potential. The fact is that he would have been able to get way more powerful than what we saw him display. Now that leads into Super Saiyan God Goku. Now, Super Saiyan God Goku, when Goku became a god, number one, he did not actually even sense his own power. He couldn't tell he even became a god until Beerus told him. So that goes to show you that, again, it's kind of like this idea that Goku estimating the power of him comparative to the fusion, and, people make that as like a smoking gun. Really, in universe, Goku had no idea really to base any of that on. When Goku is fighting against Beerus, well, Goku's full power still is enough to beat Beerus. So either way, him as God as well as the fusion, theoretically would have lost. Neither one would have been enough. So with that being said, though, there are some things we can take in mind. Now, if we're talking about beyond the initial movie, when we get into the feats of power for Super Saiyan God Goku on display, we could talk about the anime version. When Goku and Beerus were clashing their fists, they were sending out shockwaves all across the universe, not just the universe, the whole macrocosm, basically, of the Dragon Ball world. The afterlife was included, and it even rippled all the way to the Supreme Kai realm. We were told that after 3 or 4 different clashes, that this would destroy everything. And the reason for that is because Beerus and Goku's punches were not directly synced up. So basically, they weren't canceling out each other's attacks like they typically would do, let's say, in a fight, with 2 incredibly powerful characters, and thus the leftover energy was rippling outward from them. Now, with that being said, this is said to be a massive feat by fans who are on the support of Super Saiyan God Goku in the story. And after all, it was the biggest feat we'd ever seen at the time. It was something that was meant to kind of separate this level and tier of power away from everything that had come before. Not just that, but additionally, we are also told that Goku says that this is the highest level that he could ever achieve, and he would never even be able to achieve this level without if he trained his entire life. Now, of course, getting into Dragon Ball Super, we know that that's BS, because even the Resurrection F movie that comes out right after this, it's never said that Vegeta trained to achieve his God Ki, or that he never took the ritual, rather, to become a Super Saiyan God. He just trained and achieved God Ki, and also got more powerful than Super Saiyan God Goku. Now, also, another thing is that Beerus in the movie is said to have used close to or around 70% of his full power fighting against Goku. Again, this doesn't really gel with everything that happens afterward. Goku and Vegeta get Super Saiyan Blue, which is Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan on top of Super Saiyan God, and, maybe the 50 times multiplier, if you want to say that that's what they're saying, even though there's evidence, like in my video I discussed with Herms from Kanzenshu about what the multiplier for Super Saiyan Blue is in the top right corner on my channel, and yet neither one is still anywhere near as powerful as Beerus. Even at the end of Dragon Ball Super's manga, where we are right now, neither one has been 100% confirmed, as far as I know, to surpass Beerus. So retcon after retcon after retcon in terms of that. Another thing to bring into mind is that when Goku absorbs the power of the other Saiyans with the failed ritual, he's said to be the most powerful fighter ever at that point in time. You could say that that somehow would make him more powerful than Vegito or Gogeta, but again, that doesn't really gel now, does it? I mean, after all, how would just him absorbing the power of a bunch of fighters adding to his power make him stronger than a fusion of Goku and Vegeta and then multiplying it many, many, many times on top of their base forms with the different multipliers? Even if you say that it's Goku plus Vegeta as the base of Super Saiyan 3 Vegito, for example, then the fact of the matter is that they would still be, far more powerful than Goku and Vegeta individually. Let's say that's them added together at their base. For me, when it comes to like a multiplier for fusion, which I'll probably do a separate video on in the future, I've always seen it as the maximum powers of the two characters added together and maybe multiplied on top of that by like 2 times, whatever have you. You could throw your own headcanon in there, especially down below in the comments. And then you have all the multipliers for all the transformations on top of that, meaning that it makes perfect sense when we see that base Vegito or Gogeta is more powerful than even Super Saiyan 3 Goku, or later on, the other forms of Goku. Now, when we get into the feat again of Goku shattering the universe basically with his punches against Beerus, we never really saw this particular thing happening before. So for all we know, characters as powerful as Vegito, if they were to fight, the same, like Gogeta and Vegito fought together and punched and their punches weren't synced up, the exact same thing can happen. As a matter of fact, when Vegito fought in his Super Saiyan against Buhan, Buhan was unleashing his power, his dimensional screams, kind of like he did inside the time chamber. And when that happened, well, he was going to destroy the entire universe through a chain reaction, very similar to, again, what was happening from the shockwaves of Goku and Beerus' punches. His screams were going to destroy the universe. He wasn't really even necessarily trying to do that. It was just kind of a side effect of him powering up and raging out. And, who's to say that if he fired a blast at that point, he couldn't have, destroy the entire universe, right? I mean, you could say that, it doesn't necessarily scale numerically comparative to everything, but we don't really know how Ki scales in terms of its damage output in terms of powers. When you get 4 times stronger than, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, it could take you from solar system to galactic or even galaxy or large section of the universe at that point, because the fact that Ki doesn't necessarily have to scale in the same exact way that, damage output theoretically would for like joules or whatever have you. So this was just Super Saiyan Vegito was able to overcome and defeat a character who was doing that. And then he would get 8 times stronger than that. And not just that, but also this, in this particular example, would be Vegito and Gogeta from Battle of Gods. I'm going to be getting more into Gogeta shortly. Vegito is supposedly, according to a lot of people, the more powerful of the two. In terms of out-of-universe stuff, we've seen many times that that's been contradicted. You know, people have said that in different guides, oh, Vegito would lose to Gogeta in a short fight, but in a long fight he would win because the timers, and then, then there's also like Gogeta is stronger, Vegito is stronger, they're equal, and then in Dragon Ball Super we see that it seems like Vegito has an even shorter time limit than Gogeta, which is ironic because of power consumption, with all the retcons they throw into Super. So with that being said, Goku and Vegeta are stronger than they were in the Busok at this point. And if we're including the anime continuity, which it seems like Dragon Ball Super constantly is referencing, to not only include the Buhan feat of destroying the universe, but also, not just that, but also to include, for instance, things like Goku being said to be fighting against the most powerful Buu and Kid Buu in that statement in the anime. And also, it's implied that him and even Vegeta are already stronger than Ultimate Gohan, like when Vegeta rages out and surpasses Goku. They don't say, oh, he's the strongest fighter because he surpassed Gohan or Gotenks. No, he's made to seem stronger than Goku, who is made to seem like he's the strongest fighter at the time, even though in the manga, kind of contradicts that. So again, with the multiplier thrown in, with all the power thrown in, you can make a question very highly credible as to whether or not Super Saiyan God truly was more powerful than the strongest version of Fusion at the time. And that's just for Vegito. Going back to Gogeta, we have to see if perhaps Gogeta might even put up a better fight. Because the thing is, like, in terms of getting the job done, who tends to do that more, Vegito or Gogeta? Well, Gogeta. Gogeta is the one who not only is shown to be able to not mess around, except for in Dragon Ball GT, and gets the job done, whether it be against Janemba or against Broly in Dragon Ball Super Broly. But also, like I said before, with the current Super continuity, it seems like he lasts longer than Vegito. Pause. And also not just that, but he has certain specialized techniques that we don't see Vegito demonstrating. For instance, the Stardust Breaker and the Soul Punisher, things that we see him being able to purify and obliterate characters like Janemba with that attack because it specifically targets and erases his evil key and signature. So, depending upon which guide you're looking at and which statement and everything like that, you could say Gogeta is equivalent to or more powerful than Super Saiyan 3 Vegito if both of them went to their hypothetical maximums. Now with Gotenks, we saw that when he used Super Saiyan 3, it limited and reduced his fusion timer to 5 minutes. However, Goku also had a timer on the ritual because during his fight against Lord Beerus, well, what happened? His ritual power ran out. Well, at least the ritual itself in the red form, because in the anime and in the movie, and presumably in the manga, because the thing is the manga is just a shortened, truncated version of what we saw in the anime at the time, and it was meant to be promotional back then, and then eventually kind of diverged in far more significant ways. The fact of the matter is that Goku absorbed the power of God into his body. In the movie, it was in his base. Then he transforms into a Super Saiyan on top of that. You can argue, like, is he even more powerful than Super Saiyan God at that point? Or is maybe his base was like 2% of it if we're going by the multipliers or whatever have you. In the anime version, he regresses into his Super Saiyan form, and so his base would be, a fraction of that. And then at the end of the movie, when Goku destroys Beerus' sphere, he goes back into that form. So Goku would retain his power throughout the entire fight, even if he regressed back into his base form, whereas Gogeta has a chance of regressing back into his, both the forms of Goku and Vegeta after the 5 minutes or whatever his fusion timer would be with that power output. And Vegito, well, he could theoretically keep up, the whole time with that level of power if it doesn't drain him as much as it did with Goku, especially if, I don't know, maybe he has better heat, control, and consumption as a fusion because of that. So in terms of the overall multiplier, another thing I do have to bring up that a lot of fans will discuss is that Goku, when he becomes a Super Saiyan God, is surpassed by base Kefla. Kefura, Kefla, as a lot of people call in the English speaking world. And the fact is that this is a smoking gun in a lot of people's minds for the power of, Vegito and Gogeta in the overall fusion multiplier, because they say, well, I mean, if two Saiyans who weren't necessarily as strong as Goku could fuse together and surpass his Super Saiyan God in just base, and then he has to fight seriously as his Ultra Instinct Omen in order to overcome their power, then obviously that means the multiplier for fusion is higher. Well, not necessarily, because in a video I'll be discussing in the future, it's entirely possible that the power of Goku in the Battle of Gods movie with that multiplier is significantly greater multiplied than it is every single time he goes Super Saiyan God afterward. In other words, the power up that Goku got from the initial Super Saiyan God boost would be far greater than what it transforms into every time afterward. In other words, the multiplier for the initial Super Saiyan God and the ritual is significantly higher than the multiplier of fusion on top of Goku and Vegeta. And thus, as a result, Super Saiyan God Goku would be more powerful than either of the fusions. And this is how it would make sense. Another thing that a lot of people completely misunderstand about Super with regard to Kale and Caulifla is that both of them are far more powerful individually than this Super Saiyan God Goku from Battle of Gods. Seems insane to a lot of people, but that's just Dragon Ball Super's power scaling. It doesn't necessarily line up with the power scaling of the past series. It doesn't make sense in a lot of people's minds, and so they try and rationalize and justify in that way. But either way, that's just how it is. Krillin, Master Roshi, a lot of these people are more powerful than Goku's Super Saiyan God from Battle of Gods, and in turn would be able to defeat, at that point later in the story, Vegito and Gogeta. So that's another thing you could take into account. Goku absorbed the power of Super Saiyan God in terms of the power level, not the God key. He doesn't have multiple base forms and things like that a lot of people try and argue as well to make sense of the nonsensical power scaling. But at the same time, additionally, not just that, but every time he goes God afterward, it isn't as big of a boost as he did the first time. Now, one of the reasons you could possibly argue is because Goku absorbed the power of the other fighters before he got the God multiplier, which I've thought about in the past and I've seen other people comment too. The fact is that this is definitely a possibility. However, it is up in the air if he kept that power in between the fusions, because or the rituals, let's say. Because after Goku powers up and we see all the sparks shooting off his body and they say he's the strongest ever, well, he regresses again. And so you can make a question or an argument to say that perhaps all the energy that he just absorbed into him left him again. And thus, as a result, well, that could mean that, again, it is just normal power Goku having his power multiplied through the hearts of the characters pouring into him, not their power levels, and thus in turn becoming the Super Saiyan God. And so, with that being said, overall, in terms of feats on screen, you can argue for sure that Goku, especially in the anime version, has far greater feats of power, and statements that say that, he has entered into a new realm of power that he wouldn't be able to achieve on his own, and that he was the strongest fighter ever, and that he was able to now fight against Beerus, especially in the movie, that he pushed him to 70%, even though that doesn't necessarily fit in later. And a lot of people, again, try to say, Goku's God power form in his base was, basically retconned. No, it isn't, because Vegeta easily defeats Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks without powering up as copy Vegeta. And then Goku is matching him after both them power up in their bases. Goku's doing tons of things in his base, like fighting against Fit Buu, for example, and things of that nature. It's just that the power creep is insane in Super. So Fact of the matter is, when it comes to on-screen feats, statements, and so on, which sometimes in Dragon Ball you kind of have to take with a grain of salt because Toriyama rarely ever did things like that, to other than like statements and, oh, this character beat this character, XYZ, rock, paper, scissors, and so on, you could make a strong argument that Goku would be more powerful than either of the fusions and in turn able to defeat them in terms of pure power. If he's far more powerful than them, he would just stomp them easily. However, if he isn't, or if the characters like Vegito and Gogeta are able to utilize special techniques or strategies in order to overcome the power of Goku, or, outlast him or something like that, because again, Goku is exhausted, at least at the end of his fight after he destroys the Sphere of Destruction, maybe there's a way for them to win. But I think based on the evidence we've seen in the different variations of the story, anime, movie, and manga, it would seem that Goku, as a Super Saiyan God, would take the fight, and that the narrative and the in-universe evidence seems to make that suggestion as well. So with that being said, guys, I know this was a very in-depth video, as I usually do in terms of this subject. I didn't show a lot of stuff on screen, but you guys can watch some movies, you guys could read the anime and the manga. I mean, we could look through that all day, every day. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Do you agree that Gogeta and Vegeta would not be able to overcome the power based upon the different evidences that I pointed out? Or perhaps do you think that maybe that Goku's power was just overrated, that things that came afterwards showcase that, and that perhaps, the power of fusion, its multiplier, would be overall greater? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, enable notifications if you're new here as well, and if you want to support the channel, you could become a member on my channel and down below. Make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Y'all, and you about to subscribe.